And welcome everyone to Goal Chat Live. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Debra Eckerling, author of the award-winning Your Goal Guide, a roadmap for setting, planning, and achieving your goals, and founder of the DEB Method, which is my system for goal setting simplified. And every Sunday night, I lead the Goal Chat Twitter chat. And then on Mondays, I bring in some awesome experts to dive deeper into the topic. And then in about a week or so ago, they will end up as an episode of the Deb Show podcast. You know, strategy, one piece of content, a gazillion different places. See? And that's a great transition into what we're talking about today, which is strategy and systems. So as the founder of the Deb Method, which is very foundational, can't get what you want unless you know what you want. That, I believe, is the foundation of strategy, but it is so much more than that. And so I have brought together these amazing people to dive deeper into it. We have Desiree Bolin, and Desi and I think you're my newest friend on the call because we met at Speakers Playhouse and we're like, I'm cool, you're cool, let's be friends. And Bonnie Chomica, I met at Grand Connection, which is also where I met Robert Butwin. And one thing about my three guests today is it's frequent theme of my guests. They're all about helping others succeed. And to succeed, you need a strategy, a plan, and systems. So there you go. And what I would like to do next is have you all introduce yourselves and why you are so attracted to this topic of strategy. So Desi, why don't you start us off?
Great. As you know, Deb, I love talking with you. We've talked many times now, and it's great for me to bring the strategies and the systems for businesses to really scale and to grow in a sustainable way, and they're so important. And that this topic is very near and dear to my heart. I am in Washington State. I have two kids. They are 6 and 4. The business is just about going on 4 years now, and it's really centered around providing and being of service to others. So that is what I do. But I'm the first and foremost SVA, which is Strategic Virtual Assistant.
And I love how you basically claimed a title for yourself.
Yes.
Because this didn't exist before you, did it?
No.
And I think and so my theme this month is impact. So I think a huge part of making an impact is figuring out what you're good at. If you need to bend the world to meet with what you know and do very well, so be it. So fantastic and great to have you. And now I'd like to welcome Robert Butwin. And I love my Robert story because we met at Grand Connection in the spring and it didn't take. And then we met again and it did take. And that's why we make these connections, because you never know the when and the where of everything. So Robert, I am thrilled. You are like networking genius and you're dot connector.
Definitely. I'm glad to be here. My company's called Success Strategist. So when you're talking about strategy, it's like right up my alley. And obviously, as you're in tune to the marketplace has consistently changed. I've been doing this for 37 years. I mean, to think about it, when I started off listening to cassette tapes, spent a lot of money in cassette tapes. That was, before the CDs and everything else. So it's been a long time. But, the marketplace has continually changed with these different social media companies coming into the marketplace and people selling your data. It's like people becoming numb to marketing. So it's like, how do you figure out ways to help people break through the noise? And one of the key aspects of my thing in strategy, I came up with the ABC. It's actually the ABCDES squared, and the D is for digitizing your messaging. Like what you're doing right now, you're bringing quality people and you're creating a digital messaging so that they can watch it live or into the future. So, but again, it's how we create digital messaging, and that's part of the strategy.
Excellent. Well, and lovely to have you here. And the messaging is more than just the message, right? what good is it if you're speaking to no one? So you also need that strategy component to get the who you are and what you do out into the world. And that's a good intro, I think, to Bonnie Chomica. Hi, Bonnie.
Hey, Deb, great to be here. I focus on content creation, and that gets you visibility and builds your credibility, because with this digital world we live in, that's how people get to know, like, and trust you. I live on Vancouver Island. My business is online. I come from the corporate world where things were face to face and long before the internet, when you did things manually. So I've seen a lot of strategy. I worked in the tech sector for many years, so I saw a lot of strategy shifts due to regulation changes and things like that. And certainly as I moved along, I did lots of project management. So that meant systemizing things within a marketing department or within your own marketing strategy.
And it seems kind of like a silly question, but it's also the no-brainer to start with. But why is strategy so important? And then if you want to add like a snippet of your personal business strategy, would be awesome to kind of elevate into it. So why don't we start with you, Bonnie?
Sure. Strategy is like the high level piece. It's almost like your why, your mantra, why you're doing things, but more importantly, where you want to end up. And then that's followed by the tactics of how you want to end up, which is, what you focus on, Deb, with goal setting. And strategy could be, I think of some people I work with locally, for example, that have food products like hummus or wine, and they only sell it at the farmer's market. So they put up a stand every weekend, and they've got their packaging, and they just sell, over the table that they've purchased. But now with COVID, the farmers markets were shut down, so many of them were shifting that strategy into retail, which requires so many different tactics to deal with that whole environment. So the big picture is to get your name out there, and then the execution of that is going to be different.
Absolutely, because you need the foundation, you need the end result, but then there are all the little steps in between.
Exactly.
And so, Robert, what are your thoughts? Obviously you're here, strategy is important, but what do you think kind of sums up that relevance?
It's like, first, no matter what it is that you do, you've got to be able to see into the future and get some kind of a picture of what you want to create. And then you've got certain goals, but you've got to have strategies to make sure you hit your goals. And, part of it, and it's amazing we're on this subject matter right now, because I've been readjusting my strategy, because, there's a book out called The Big Leap. And if you haven't read it or listened to it, I highly recommend it. You can get it on YouTube for free. But it says, stay in your state of genius. But in the meantime, I've had to adjust my strategy. For example, I just created a 65-second video that virtually's got my calendar link, which I just added Calendly. So I'm changing my strategy because, again, if you want to make sure that you hit whatever your goals are and you get to the end of what you're really looking to create, the puzzle you're looking to put together, you need to have a strategy to make sure that you do it. And so I'm doing that. I finally am getting a CRM, believe it or not. So I'm changing everything because, again, I came up with the 5 A's in the law of attraction, and one of them is accept the changes you need to make. So part of my strategy is realizing if I really wanted to create the things I wanted to create, I had to make certain changes, and I'm doing that. And that's part of the strategy, adjusting as you go along.
Oh, well, you just want a gold star for that. So here you go. Because the thing too, and I've said this a lot. So I've been doing goal setting and productivity coaching, speaking, leading groups, etc. for years and years. But I just became Deb the branding 3.5 years ago. And that was because it was time for me to embrace the me who helps people figure out what they want and how to get it. And when you think about the visualization, the future you want, it's going to look a whole lot different than the future you envisioned pre-COVID, because you can still make things you want happen. The mechanics are a little bit different. So I think that's the other really important part of why change is so important, knowing what you want, but realizing also that the routes there are going to alter as life does. Desi, thoughts?
Absolutely. It's so important to have a solid strategy in place and to think about all of these moving parts in a way that is like a big picture for your business. That's the main thing. Robert just mentioned CRM. That is one of the biggest things that I always tell people to do is get a CRM and get all of your contacts in one place and track the communication you have with them. It's so important, especially because I believe in lead nurture and really making the connection. So building a foundational relationship. And that's really my strategy is really just talking with people. I mean, I can't even count the hours that I've been in one-on-one meetings, just learning about other people and seeing how they do things. And a lot of times it influences how I do things, because I see something working well and I see something that my clients could benefit from. And we pivot. A lot of strategy has to really center around fluidity and being able to adapt.
And we all met, or I met all of you, and you met each other through networking. So whereas, and when I do these conversations, I like to bring in friends from different parts of my life. But Bonnie and Robert just had a breakout last weekend. And Desi and Robert said, "Oh, I think we met years ago." So I think networking as a strategy is something that can't be overemphasized. What do you think, Desi?
Absolutely. Networking is the main thing that I do for my business. And it is, again, to build that foundational relationship. I always, on average, it takes 8 to 10 times of getting in front of someone to have them consider purchasing from you or working with you in some capacity. So really building the foundational relationship and talking with them and finding out what they need and how you can be of service. It's so important. I know Virtually Sourced has operated solely on word of mouth and referral for the entire 4 years, and that is because of networking.
Awesome. Robert, your thoughts on networking as a strategy?
Well, considering I position myself as the professional networker, and that's all I do, I've created a list of 47 different networking groups and continually adding to it, which I'm happy to share with people when you give them my information. In fact, Desi, I think you and I originally met. Now that we've been talking, is in the tribe that is now Tribe Up. Whoa! But the key as far as a strategy in networking, and this is one of the things I've learned. One of the biggest mistakes that people make in networking is all they do is think about transactions. What you want to focus on in networking is sort of like opening a bank account. You need to make deposits before you can make a withdrawal. So it's like my strategy is, not trying to sell somebody. Obviously, I want to influence them of why we should have some kind of collaboration, but it's about giving. How can I be of value to you? What can I do to be of service to you? And if you focus in networking from that perspective, because most people, when they go to networking groups, they say, there's one person in front of me. Well, when I started in this business, I hate to date myself, but I will. They said the average person knew about 300 people. Now today, with all these social media channels, I believe the average person has reached to about 3,000 people. In fact, there goes another part of your strategy, because you need to have a strategy to collect emails. Because if you're dependent upon a platform to have all your contacts, that platform can go down at any time. So part of your strategy should be you need a landing page and you need to have some kind of a free gift so that you are able to meet people whichever way you meet them, from online to get them offline. So all about networking.
Excellent. And what I'll do is I will put your email in the recap. And if people want to reach out to get that list of the 47 groups, I know I would like it too. I'm going to play connect the dots and see how many of them I'm in already. But Bonnie, your thoughts on networking as strategy?
Yeah, absolutely. The best way to get known. When I started my business, I was just selling locally. I was doing marketing for people. Now I coach people how to do it themselves. But initially, I belonged to 4 women's groups and 3 chambers of commerce, and just building relationships, getting to know who's who in the zoo. And to Robert's point is, it's not about selling. I wasn't selling my services. I was trying to serve these people. It's like, who do you need connected to? And there's nothing more exciting than connecting someone that can help each other, So, and now with this, expansion of networking online where we've all met, my reach has gone way far beyond my regional location, right? I'm talking to people around the world. So it's pretty exciting.
And so I want to take a step back because we were talking about networking tools kind of sort of a minute ago. So what are your favorite tools for strategy? Do you have, we're talking about CRMs. In a minute, I will let you all share your favorites. But what other tools do you think are instrumental in the strategy? Do you want to start, Bonnie?
I'm not sure what a specific tool would be for a strategy. To me, a strategy is an idea. It's a goal. So I'm not sure. I see tools as tactics, but not as a strategy.
Well, we are talking about strategy and systems. So I will alter the question. And what different tools, apps, or what have yous do you think are important within your business?
Website, email, program, and it just left my head. A CRM.
Do you have any favorites that you use for your website, your email, and your CRM?
I actually just earlier this year launched a Wix website. My old website was on WordPress. And I wanted nothing to do with WordPress after 8 years on there. And I found Wix. I actually had someone build it for me, but now I manage it myself, and I find it quite user-friendly, and there's lots of good features on it. So I've been happy with that. And CRM, I use something called Less Annoying CRM. It's only about $10 a month, and it does everything I need. As I expand, it's good to have a team on there. It connects with my Google Calendar, and like any CRM, you still have to have your own process to make sure that you use it. And email, I use ConvertKit. I've been on a couple different platforms, and I got onto ConvertKit, and I really like it. They've got great landing pages. They've got kind of simple automation, and it's very easy to track, very easy to use, I find.
Fantastic. And Desi, I'm sure you have a ton of tools that you like for productivity and getting your strategies out into the world.
There are so many different tools available, and a lot of them are now user friendly. But just a year or so ago, they've really just evolved, especially since the start of COVID, and everyone really needed to be more productive. My favorite CRMs, I have 2 that I regularly recommend. The HubSpot fully comprehensive free version if someone doesn't have the capital to invest in a CRM at that time. Great platform. And then I use Keep by Infusionsoft for myself, and that is the paid platform that I recommend. And it's really so inclusive because you can do mass emails, and you can do text messages, and you can do individual emails and text messages, and it's so great. And it's so helpful because then you don't have to go to a bunch of different places, and it integrates with so many different things. I have mine set up using Zaps to several of my other platforms. So it'll automatically pull the information into the CRM, and I don't have to manually do it. And Zapier is a great tool for really increasing productivity. Then again, you've got your scheduling links. I do mine through Keep, but a calendar scheduling link and really staying on top of your schedule is also very, very important.
Excellent. I like this. And we know Robert just started calendar linking. So what else do you like?
I like the team of people that do the work for me, sort of like a virtual assistant. Again, it's like staying in your state of genius, and they've got the tools that they, because they're going to do it for me. So, ultimately, that's really what I like, as far as my strategy. A couple other strategies is understanding why you're networking. And, let me divert for a second. We've all heard this saying, your net worth is in direct relationship to the value of your network. So why am I networking? Sure, am I looking to find a couple, maybe more key people, but more importantly, I'm trying to find key people for people that are already in my network. Because what does that do? That means my network is going to go up in value, and somehow it's going to trickle over onto myself. The other aspect as far as tools is knowing where. And, we've talked about, for example, the list of networking. There's a couple places for podcasts to find quality places to be on podcasts if you're not familiar with them. One of them is matchmaker.fm. Another one is podmatch.com. Great places. Then you've got Speakers Playhouse. So, part of it is understanding where and why are you networking. As far as the tools, I'm the tool. I figure out how to connect with people and develop relationships. And my team, and I love the acronym of team, together everybody achieves miracles. And if you've got the right team around you so that you can stay in your state of genius.
You do need your people. And this is, I say this frequently, you can't reach your goals on your own, right? You need your cheerleaders, your resources. And a lot of times the people you network with, they're not your clients, they're not your customers, but we all know people and they know people, and on and on. It's like very Energizer Bunny, keeps going and going and going. Anything to add before we move on the networking strategy elements?
One last thing.
Yes, please.
Clubhouse. If you're not familiar with Clubhouse, it can be a very valuable place as far as where to meet other people, but you can't allow it, because in everything that we do, you've got to consider your ROI, your return on the investment of your time. So you don't want to just get caught up just listening, but there is strategies around how to be effective in Clubhouse. So I'll throw that in.
Well, and that's why we started the second time we talked, when it took, for lack of a better word, is because you were in a breakout room about Clubhouse. And as an Android, I was so late to the party, but I'm like, what is this thing? Is it worth it? Do you have one or two Clubhouse strategies you want to share?
Sure, definitely. It's like every time that you're having the opportunity to speak, and one of the strategies in Clubhouse is, number one, you want to find rooms that you've got something that you're interested in. I stay away from those polarizing kind of rooms, that are not, that's just my strategy, but I want to get up on stage. So on the bottom of Clubhouse, you can raise your hand, and I almost always get up on stage. And so part of my strategy is every time I speak, I'm thinking about the audience. I came up with an acronym for pitch, and I can really quickly run it by you, because The P is practice and perfect your presentation. Every time we know we've got 2 or 3 or 5 minutes, whatever period of time to speak. So you want to make sure that you always have something of value to say. I is, what is your intention? Your intention is to say something in Clubhouse or wherever that will be valuable to the listening audience. T is think about who you're speaking to. You got to do your exploration before you can possibly segue into a presentation. E is clarity, simple, profound messaging. H is how and why they need to get back to you. So going back to Clubhouse, you want to get up on stage, you want to contribute, then they've got what they call back channeling. If somebody else is speaking that I think that I would be interested, because it doesn't matter which platform you meet somebody on, your objective should be to set up a time to do a one-on-one. So you really have the opportunity to know the other person so you can figure out how you might collaborate together. So, that's my strategy for LinkedIn, Clubhouse, or even in these network on Zooms.
Fantastic. And so Desi, do you have a favorite platform?
I typically, when I'm doing my initial reach out, I use LinkedIn. I just found that it's the most professional social media platform to really utilize. And there are so many people on there and people from all walks of life. And it's a very diverse community. And once you get into that network, everyone knows everyone, and it's pretty great. So that's my favorite for initial. I'd have to say, networking wise, my favorite groups fall under I do use Podmatch. I use Podmatch to book my podcasts. And it's a great platform. I think I've done 21 podcasts in the last month and a half. And then Speakers Playhouse, you get a lot of opportunities just by going and hearing what opportunities people have and then reaching out to kind of dive deeper. But networking wise, my favorite group to be a part of, I think, is Happy Neighborhood Project. And that's just because they have so many worldwide free groups that you can go and meet people.
And why don't you explain what Happy Neighborhood Project is?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a group of professionals who like to network and like to meet people who are very, very service-minded and very passion-driven. Now, when you go to these networking groups, it's very important that you kind of take a look at this before you join that group. But you want to make sure it's not a pitch fest. That is, and Robert alluded to this a little while back, but the pitch fests are really not going to get anyone anywhere. Truth be told, you want to go and you want to find ways that you can be of service, even if it's dropping a resource or giving some insight into a different a system or a strategy that they're thinking about using. And that's really the way to do it. Happy Neighborhood Project, like I said, they have 65, I think over 65 meetings, free meetings a week now. And again, that's worldwide.
That's a lot.
It is.
Good for them. Good for them. And the whole point of being of value, being of service is, I think, so important, because I'm, all about the mission. When you have that mission to help other people and the thing that you do well, that you excel at, that is your reason, to make the world a better place, etc. When you have that fuel, I think it makes a tremendous difference. And to remember that at all times, so essential.
Absolutely.
Bonnie, do you have a favorite place to connect?
I'd also say LinkedIn, just because it is a professional. It's a place for professionals. People aren't talking about their dogs or what they had for lunch, or that happens occasionally, but not as much as the others. But I think it's people are there for the same purpose. So So it's easier to have those conversations. It's easy to reach out to people as a professional, and you're not trying to pitch to them. It's just, you looked interesting. Let's chat. It's also great for keeping in touch with people that you've met or lost touch with. It's like, hey, we haven't spoken for a while. I find it an easy place to have conversations, and it's grown up over the last couple of years as well. It's become much more. I think it was a bit stodgy before, and now it's just a little more relaxed than it was. I'm also keen on the grand connection. I just love the energy and the professionalism and the caliber of people that are in that group. So yeah, and that's a paid membership for me. So I find it worth it.
Well, there are a gazillion. If there were a million before COVID, there are now a gazillion places where you can meet people, which is, on the plus side, it's great because there are places where you could meet people that you would never connect with in a million years, but also too many people. So what sort of, I think the networking is wonderful, and this is kind of diverted into a conversation about networking strategies, which is totally fine. Networking is one of my favorite topics as well. What about follow-up? Desi, do you have some things to share? And Bonnie, if you can mute yourself, I think we're getting feedback. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Follow-up is so very important. I did mention this a little earlier, but I do a lot of lead nurture, which is doing several different touches with a contact before you even consider asking for the sale. And part of that is follow-up. After the first touch, really anything after that is considered follow-up. Because you're continuing to build those foundational pieces that are so important to a business relationship or a relationship in general. And it's critical, in my opinion, to follow up.
And so can you give some examples of things that you do for lead nurture?
Yeah, absolutely. So the lead nurture campaigns that I run for my clients, we typically do 6 or 7 touches with a contact. So by the time they get actually talking with my client, they are already a warm lead. They've already, kind of understood everything that they do. We've asked a lot of qualifying questions of them and figuring out if it would be a beneficial relationship. So the lead nurture typically it starts with LinkedIn connection. That's the first step. So you can utilize that network connection at some point later on down the road. Then we go into qualifiers. We have pre-qualifiers and qualifiers based on client criteria. And then we do a phone call followed up with an email. Then we reach out again on social media, typically LinkedIn. What we will do is we'll find a post that they shared or something they commented on, find something that resonates with us, and then start a conversation about it. And it's really, again, just building those foundational pieces of the relationship. And then we'll even do direct mailers. Direct mailers are highly, highly effective right now. A lot of people don't do them anymore. So it's a way to make a statement.
Definitely a way to stand out is to be something in someone's mailbox that's not a bill, right? And even now people do so much electronic billing. So I guess anything in your mailbox is like a treat, right?
Yeah.
Well, maybe not anything, but yes, I get that. The other thing that you said that I loved is the whole interacting on the posts. So to find not just anything, but things that
absolutely
make sense, right? Don't just say great post because that looks like you're throwing spaghetti. Find the posts that are great and say why it speaks to you, and then be memorable.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's so important to actually start. Absolutely. It's so important to find something that actually. Absolutely. being memorable is a big part of it. And it's so important to find a piece that resonates with you as a person who's talking to this other person to build that conversation off of. And it really just opens the door. If you're talking with a lead or a prospect and you're discussing or mentioning something that they said in a post a year ago that holds a lot of value to them, either holds a lot of value or is deeply ingrained within them, you're going to get a lot more engagement out of that contact.
Absolutely. So, Robert, what are your thoughts on follow-up?
Well, besides the fact that it's very important, one of the hot
in addition to that.
Yeah. One of the hot trends today is what they call these social engagement parties. Almost all these networking groups are, they're doing it where you get a bunch of other people to post on your post, because again, it goes back to social proof. So, that's very important. Something that I'm reevaluating and figuring out how I can engage in things that will, going back to what Desi said, make you more memorable. And one of the things I'm just adding is mailbox power, which allows you to have a personalized branded to you, how you want yourself to brand it, and send that message in a very nice looking postcard to somebody. So that's something else that I'm looking at as far as following up with people. But part of my strategy is making myself as memorable as possible on the first time. And let me tell you, this is going to go off into a tangent because it's totally opposite of what I'm just talking about. But approximately 37 years ago, I went out on a first date, and the lady that I was on that date, within the first 45 minutes, decided she was never going to ever see me again. I'm grateful that that date lasted more than 45 minutes, because we ended up getting married and been happily married for 35 years. But first impressions are important. And back to strategies, another strategy that we really didn't mention is when you get on somebody else's podcast, because they're able to tap into other people's, ultimately, their outreach. That's another strategy that you want to take a look at and think about as far as how to attract the right people in relationship to what you're doing.
So and I was waiting for that punchline. So thank you for sharing your story and how that lasted for so many years. That's really good message. What?
Do you want to know what turned everything?
Yes, please.
I flashed her. She had just taken a course in body language, and a universal sign is when somebody raises their eyebrows. It's called flashing. And in her mind, she says, "This guy must like me."
So you knew how to speak her language and reel her back in. I love that. Oh, you just made the story even better. So you were talking about podcasts as a good way. Do you have good tips for that follow-up after the podcast? Robert, we need you to unmute because you're saying brilliant things and we can't hear them.
I'm sorry. Ultimately, they've got to reach you. I mean, it's like on a podcast, you've got the ability to put your contact, however the host of the podcast wants to do it, but the audience has to reach out to you. And then it's like, no matter which platform you're meeting somebody on, you want to actually have a one-on-one. And my whole strategy is always be of value, be of service. So if somebody says, I want to develop a long-term relationship with that person.
Got it. So whether you're on a podcast or you're in an article or on a video, you want to make enough of an impression that people want to follow up with you.
Yes.
Got it. Bonnie, thoughts on following up?
It's important. I mean, you don't want to just meet somebody and then leave them hanging, right? Like if there's somebody that resonates with you, then follow up, whether that's on social. Everyone's mentioned, commenting on posts and sharing posts and things like that. That's a great way to build a connection, because you're putting some thought into that for them, and everybody wants that exposure and wants that engagement. So if you can do that, then that just increases your visibility in their eyes, and they're more likely to reciprocate as well. So it's about being of service to them first. I also like to ask people, especially when I make connections on LinkedIn, I like to ask them who their target audience is, so that I understand who I should be looking out for and able to refer them. And if there's, depending on how the conversation goes, sometimes I ask them about their marketing, because that's my business. How do you market your business? How do you find that? And then if you don't have use for my services, then do you know somebody that might? And just kind of end the conversation there. And often it just leads to more stuff.
Well, we all want to lead to more stuff, right? And it's true. It's not just about what you do and how you help, but the more information you get about these new contacts and what they want, the more able you are to connect better dots for them.
That's right.
So what about the person who's in reboot mode, full reboot mode, and they're starting, I wouldn't say from scratch, but from Etch-a-Sketch? What is the first step for anyone to make on a strategy? Robert?
What I would do is ask solid questions, understand what it is that they really like. Where do they see themselves going? I would like to get some indication of how much money they'd really like to make. One time after I did a seminar, somebody came up to me and said, "Is this business easy?" I didn't hesitate to respond. I said, "No, it's not easy, but it's worth it when you're successful." I think, people have got what I want to call a BS meter, and they can pretty well tell if you're BSing them. So you want to be as authentic as possible, and be, because people really are, I believe, especially with everything that's going on in the world today, are looking for authenticity. And so I want to understand who they are. I want to understand what they've done in the past, what they liked, and what they've done. I want to understand the kind of resources that they have, not necessarily money, but what is their database? What kind of resources do they bring to the table in relationship? And this goes back to strategy of what they'd like to actually do, so that I could figure out what I might possibly be able to do, or who I might be able to connect them with that is better able to serve them than I am.
Got it. So we're now talking from the position of the network E. So
Right.
If you're in these situations, you want to be as authentic as possible, know who you are, what you want to create, what resources. I love that, because in the D of Deb, determine your mission, is where are you now, where are you going? And that inventory is huge, because you're not necessarily going to make these, you can't make the big leap off of, well, okay, this analogy is going nowhere, but I'm gonna read it back, because I know what I'm trying to say. You need the solid foundation in whatever building blocks, resources you have from the get-go, because that's going to start you in a better position when you're getting more of yourself out there. Okay, Desi, thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many thoughts going through my head right now, but the main thing to really take away here is you have to have these strategies and these systems in place in order to build your business, and build it successfully and build it sustainably. Sustainability is a key thing that I work with my clients on. And that's just because what happens if we go through another pandemic? How many more small businesses are we going to lose? I know I live in a very, very small community, and we have lost probably close to 30% of our small businesses because they can't afford to stay open.
Wow. So finding sustainability, scalability is a huge part. So when you're just starting out, don't just think 1 month, 2 months, a year ahead. Think of the way in which you can evolve your business.
Absolutely.
Great. Bonnie, what about you? Any thoughts on strategies for your business?
Well, yeah, just mirroring everything else everyone else has said, but there's also, I guess, a self-awareness piece that, what skills do you have? I think Robert mentioned resources, but what are your skills and likes? What can you commit to? Because you don't want to get into something that's not going to, fulfill you, even though you might need to do a lot of things on your own at the beginning. But eventually, be able to hire out, so that you can focus on your own genius. But so I think there's some self-awareness that, some reality check. Can I do this? Will I continue? Will I commit? Because it does take commitment. So that's my way in.
Let me jump in for one other thing that just came to me. You're talking about the resources. A lot of the times as you're getting to know somebody, can you plug them into something that's a system? For example, mentorbox.com. On mentorbox.com, it's $59 for the year. Almost any entrepreneur that I talk to or listen to, everybody talks about the mindset. And, obviously I can't, and I'm not going to sit back and, that's not my degree, but I know how important mindset is into becoming a successful business. So it's great if you've got resources that are apropos based on the person you're speaking with.
That's true. And everybody's coming at everything differently. So knowing not just their skills, their strengths, but what do you have, right? What are the different things you can offer different people to bring them forward, right? Excellent. Well, this is the point in the show where I like to ask my guests to gift a goal to the people who are tuning in. So what is one thing someone can do right now, today, when they're done watching, that's going to make a difference in creating or building their strategy? Desi?
You know what I'm going to say, Deb? I'm going to say CRM. It is the foundational piece to keeping track of your communications and when you should follow up. And that is going to make a huge impact on how you run your business.
Love it. Wonderful. Bonnie, what is one thing someone can do today?
Get a list building strategy started. Don't wait. Don't jump on Facebook. Don't jump on Instagram. Focus on how you're going to build your email list first.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Just even creating a small lead magnet and a landing page. A lead magnet could be just a checklist or a report, or here's 5 tips. Whatever that is. It doesn't have to be complicated, but it's just a free downloadable that you can start sharing, and collecting those emails and start emailing those people. Don't wait till you have 1,000 people on your list. If you've got 10 people on your list, start sending emails out to them, because you will create a habit and you'll build your writing skills, and all of those are a requirement for your business.
Excellent. And Robert, what about you?
Okay. My suggestion, because first of all, I love what Desi said. I love what Bonnie said, and I 100% agree. But what I alluded to earlier about the mindset, your mindset. What changed my life is listening to Wayne Dyer when he talked about no limit person. And ultimately, he said, or how it impacted me is that when I started to realize the limits that existed, I was responsible for them being there. See, once you take responsibility for what is, you can take it for what will be. But most people are in a state of denial, don't even notice I am lying. So here's what I would suggest. Go to YouTube. You all know how to find YouTube. Let me give you a couple of things that I would highly recommend searching for. First of all, Jim Rohn, R-O-H-N. Herbalife paid him $1 million a year more not to speak in front of any other group. He was Tony Robbins' mentor. Another one would be Dr. Robert Anthony, Beyond Positive Thinking. Joe Vitale, who was in The Secret, he said, when I started my career, this was instrumental in my success, 30 some years ago. Myself personally, when I started my career, That was instrumental in my success. And the third one would be Michael Gerber, the E-Myth. And the reason I say that is he starts off by saying 4 to 5 businesses are going to fail in the first 5 years. Of the 4 to 5 that fail in the first 5 years, don't breathe a sigh of relief. 4 to 5 are you going to fail in the next 5 years. Now I'm thinking to myself, and I'm listening to my self-talk, and I'm saying, that isn't me. Failure was not an option. And he goes on to say why. As he says, most people work in their business, not on their business. They get caught up in the activity traps. But there's so much good information that you can plug into for free, no cost. So again, my suggestion is lay your foundation. The strategy is lay your foundation, because then you become unstoppable as you actually launch your business.
Fantastic. And so I've got Jim Rohn, Dr. Robert
Anthony?
Anthony, Joe Vitale, and Michael Gerber, right?
Well, Joe Vitale reread Dr. Robert Anthony's book. It's there on YouTube for free. It's got a purple background. It's called Beyond Positive Thinking.
Oh, Joe read, okay.
Yes. But Joe Vitale's good. I mean, the beauty about YouTube, all you have to do is put anybody's name in, and you can start listening to it. And if it doesn't resonate with you, you can go to something else. I mean, there's so much free information you can plug into.
That's true. And while we're at it, I'd say I have a YouTube channel as well for the Deb Method, or you can go to thedebmethod.com/blog to watch any of my previous Goal Chat Lives or the episodes of the Deb Show podcast, because it is all about inspiration and motivation. I believe that people need that push. And here we are pushing the people, saying you could do it, but it really starts with figuring out that foundation. Determine your mission. What do you want? Why do you want it? Explore your options. What does that look like? Brainstorm your path, make a plan. So that's the 10-second version of the Deb Method. And if you want to learn more about me, you can go to thedebmethod.com or grab a copy of your goal guide, a roadmap for setting, planning, and achieving your goals, and it will actually walk you through the process. So I guess that's my bonus goal. Get my book, figure out your foundation, and then change your mindset. Get the list building strategy in place after you get the CRM so you can manage everybody. So I've just shared how people can find me. Why don't you all share how people can find you? Bonnie?
You can find me on bonniechomica.com.
Easy peasy. And Desi?
Virtuallysource.com. It has all of my contact information, including my cell number. So if anyone needs advice, guidance, or a second set of eyes, feel free to reach out.
There is no substitute for an extra set of eyes too sometimes, because it's just a matter of, I know something, but what is it? And that's why people like you exist in the world, right? Robert, where can people find you?
The best way to find me is on my email, which is Butwin, BUTWIN @gmail.com. And again, my name's Robert Butwin, and what you need to remember is with Robert, you do nothing but win.
Wow, that is amazing. And how long have you been saying that one, Robert? Butwin?
Probably about 2-3 years. You know, it goes back to what Zig Ziglar used to say: turn lemons into lemonade. You know, make a positive out of, you know, the way that you're able to.
Which is really what we've all been doing over the last 18 months or so, is making lots and lots of lemonade. The things that we were doing pre-pandemic don't necessarily work anymore. So it's the perfect opportunity to shake up your life, make new plan, and make the life that you want happen. And so before we wrap, I would love to leave everybody with one final tip. So Bonnie, do you have a final bit of inspiration that you'd like to share?
I guess because I focus on content creation, that's another piece of your strategy, is even for your own personal brand, is to put some kind of content out there, whether that's email or social, LinkedIn articles, or even better, a blog on your website. So create content, be of service to that tribe out there.
I love that. Put your content out there, be of service to your tribe. That's awesome. And what about you, Desi? Final tip, thought?
There are so many things, and it goes back to really diving deep and getting to know people. I strongly urge people to just have conversations. It doesn't have to be awkward. They don't have to be centered around sales. You make that connection.
I love that, because when you get to know people, that's really, it's not, we talked earlier about the know, like, and trust factor, which I remember when people started saying that, what was it, 5-6 years ago? Now it's like rolls off the tongue, whatever. But I believe there's no substitute for genuine connection, which is what you all stand for, which is why you're all here. The secret to strategy is genuine conversation. Build your tribe, build yourself up. Robert, final tip to you.
Let me give you my secret formula for wealth. There's a direct relationship to the value and service you bring to the marketplace and the rewards the marketplace will give you back. The marketplace is people. So the more that you can give to other people, I love the acronym for HOPE, which is helping other people every day, or helping other people elevate their consciousness, their awareness, their ability to make a difference. And the more that we can bring hope to other people, it comes back to you in many different ways.
I really like that, especially since my November theme is hope. So I absolutely love that you said that. My October theme has been impact, because in doing what we do, making a difference, being of service, we want to help make other people's lives better. But the hope part, that's why we do things differently, is because we think we know there are better things out there. And there are people like you all and me who are here to tell the world, you're listening, you're struggling, it's okay, things will get better. Do the work, make the strategy. There is a hope that is there for all. So did I tie that well enough into that for you, Robert? Wonderful. Well, thank you again, Desiree Bolin, Robert Butwin. Do nothing but win. I'm never going to hear your name the same way again. And Bonnie Chomica for joining me today for Gold Chat Live, talking about strategy and systems with this focus on networking as strategy. So I re-subtitled us. You're welcome. And if you are listening, watching, however you're consuming this content, realize that your life, you have the power to make the changes. You have the power to make an impact. Choose yourself, build your foundation and the strategies that go along with it, and go on out there and go for it. Thank you, everybody. You can catch me every Sunday night for the Gold Chat Twitter chat, Mondays for Gold Chat Live, and every Thursday there's a new episode of The Deb Show. Thank you all again. Everybody go out, make an impact, but strategize for it. Here you go.
Thanks, Deb.
Thank you.